Hey guys, let's get more news about Dallas, but first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Cowboys trade up for Micah Parsons' clone in mock draft. The Dallas Cowboys have spent this offseason trying to position themselves for a bounce-back season after a disappointing 7-11 finish to 2024. One of the biggest decisions they have upcoming is in the first round of the NFL Draft, where they hold the number 12 overall pick. On Friday, NFL.com's Gennaro Phillips released an updated mock draft, which led with a charming disclaimer. How will the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft play out on April 24? The short answer, I don't know. Nobody knows. That's why we're captivated by a sporting event that doesn't include the playing of a sport. It's what made mock drafting into a cottage industry. Uncertainty fuels intrigue, wrote Phyllis. Phyllis had a rather bold prediction for the Cowboys. Instead of picking at number 12, Phyllis expects the Cowboys to trade up with the Carolina Panthers, grabbing the number 8 pick. Phyllis doesn't specify what the package would entail, but it would contain the number 12 pick. Jumping up to number 8, the Dallas Cowboys would select versatile Georgia defender Jalen Walker, a linebacker-edge combo. Across the mockosphere, Walker often comes off the board at number 8 overall typically, though, the Carolinas native is projected to land in Charlotte. But in this simulation, the Panthers trade the pick to the Cowboys, who scoop up Walker for themselves. Wait, doesn't Dallas already have a twitchy LB/edge hybrid? Yeah, but why settle for one Micah Parsons when you can have two? Alright, that comp's aggressive, but the pairing would be undeniably fun. And Parsons is a well-documented fan of Walker's game, noted Phyllis. We're sort of reaching here. Why does Micah's opinion matter? And again, what is the cost? Phyllis won a national championship with Georgia in his freshman campaign in 2022, but had a career year in his junior campaign last season. In 2024, Walker tallied 60 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, 2 pass deflections, and 2 fumble recoveries. Walker took home the Dick Butkus Award for the most outstanding linebacker in college football, joining an esteemed list of alumni that includes Von Miller, Luke Kuechly, and C.J. Mosley. Walker was the third Bulldog to win the award, joining Roquan Smith, 2017, and Nakobe Dean, 2021. Holdouts are a commonplace tactic in the NFL, and the Dallas Cowboys have plenty of experience in that realm. Just last season, CeeDee Lamb held out from training camp waiting on a contract extension. Lamb eventually got his deal and both sides moved past that tension. Many cases, that simple sequence of events plays out the same across the league. That term was not in the college football vernacular until this past week. The wild world of name, image and likeness, NIL, has shaken up the landscape of the sport, building up to the events of the last few days. Friday, ESPN reported University of Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava's decision to hold out from spring football activities as his rep sought after a restructuring of his $2 million up to $4 million. Following Tennessee's decision not to budge, Iamaleava then entered the transfer portal. Iamaleava will not be the only player to make this decision in the coming years, but his case is certainly a landmark one for the sport. However, Cowboys star Micah Parsons took issue with the decision and used his platform to call out the entire sport. College football a joke now? Y'all minds well just make college into a semi-pro league. Actually hold players accountable to the contracts they sign. Parsons posted on X. Parsons never hesitates to make his voice heard when it comes to mostly any topic of conversation. But he certainly has a point here. The NCAA has shied away from regulating the NIL across the sport, meaning there are no statutes that bind players to their programs. So those contracts hold little value when it comes to that relationship. As a result, college football has become the epicenter of the ensuing NIL chaos in college athletics. For a product so popular on a national scale, this drama has become a real detriment to its overall perception. Parsons is not alone in his disgust for Iamaleva's decision. Unfortunately, there is no sign of change coming down the pipe. Dak Prescott's advice to Micah Parsons amid contract talks: stay positive. Dak Prescott knows plenty about the type of elongated contract negotiations that Micah Parsons is dealing with this offseason. Having gone through multiple franchise tags and waiting until the eve of the 2024 campaign to ink his massive deal, Prescott understands it's a process. He said late last week at the Children's Cancer Fund Gala that his advice to Parsons would be to stay positive. "I don't have the full answer for it, or I think all of mine would have been done a lot earlier than they were," Prescott said, chuckling, per the team's official website. For him, just stay positive. Understand and make sure that his team knows what he wants and what he believes. Parsons reported for voluntary off-season workouts on Monday. Given that he's still waiting for his big payday, it was unclear if the star pass rusher would skip the start of the program under new coach Brian Schottenheimer. He hasn't been at the beginning of off-season workouts the past 2 years. With Phase 1 of the off-season program consisting of meetings and strength workouts, Parsons isn't risking much by reporting, and he'll score points with the coaching staff for being a leader. We'll see if he fully participates once the off-season moves to actual football work, including mandatory minicamp in June. A hold-in is always possible as negotiations continue. Very confident in Micah Parsons and what he can do, Prescott said of his star teammate. "Who he is and what he wants to is as important as anything. And that's in being a leader." Cowboys trade prediction sees Dallas net $90 million wide receiver. The Dallas Cowboys may still have a deal or two to make ahead of the regular season, and how this month's draft shakes out could be a determinant, particularly in the first round. ESPN's Mel Kiper Jr. continues to push a running back for the Cowboys with the number 12 overall pick, namely Amarian Hampton of North Carolina. However, the names of wide receivers Tataroa McMillan of Arizona and Matthew Golden of Texas have also been floated at that spot, as has that of Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. Dallas could use any of those players, but if the franchise goes a direction other than receiver, the Cowboys could become active on the trade market as a pathway to addressing that positional deficiency. Mo Moton of Bleacher Report on Sunday, April 13, authored a list of trade predictions that could still happen ahead of the start of the 2025 campaign. Among the most prominent deals he concocted involves a trade between Dallas and the Miami Dolphins, in which the Cowboys receive wideout Tyreek Hill and a fifth-round pick in exchange for their 2025 second-rounder, number 44 overall, and a fourth-round selection next year. If the Cowboys miss out on McMillan or pass on him, they could call the Dolphins to make a blockbuster move for Hill. Dallas would make Dak Prescott a happy quarterback if he returns from injury to see CeeDee Lamb and Hill as his top two receivers, Moton wrote. Dallas has $37.7 million in cap space. Though the club has had extension talks with edge rusher Micah Parsons, it can still restructure a few contracts to make room for Hill's $27.7 million cap hit if necessary. Hill took a step back last season, after his NFL peers voted him the best player in the game heading into the 2024 campaign. His previously overwhelming speed didn't overwhelm as much as it had in prior seasons, though the Dolphins struggled without QB Tua Tagovailoa for a long stretch. Hill represents risk, as he still has 2 years remaining on a $90 million contract heading into his age 31 season. He is also dealing again with off-field domestic issues. But the Cowboys have shown a willingness to take on controversial players in the recent past, and Hill could feasibly bounce back to his pre-2024 levels of production with a fresh start in Dallas alongside talents like Prescott and Lamb. And you, fan? What do you think about Tyreek Hill's situation? Write to us in the comments.